People who know God should live differently than those who don't know God. People who know God should live differently than those who don't know God. The whole point Paul was making was this: there is an out there living and there is an up there living. There is an out there in the culture, out there in the world, out there in the flesh lifestyle. But there is an up there lifestyle, an up there supported by the Word of God, obedient by the Word of God, trying to please Christ. There is an out there living and there's an up there living, and they are not the same. The world out there is vile. The world out there is corrupt. The world out there is sinful. It is a pornea world. And Paul said Christianity ought to be different. And one way the world sees the difference is how we live. Your life, your Christ life, should be easily different than their world life. If I live like they do, if I do what they do, if I talk like they do and believe what they do and act like they do and have an attitude like they do and complain like they do, how is that getting my life ready for the Lord's return? I want to ask if you've ever been email scammed. Studies show 50% of the world's population has been email scammed. I used to make fun of people who got email scammed, and I kind of fell prey this weekend. We were at my house. All my family came over on Friday night. The 12 of us, you know, the wild. I've told you about the crazy. It was loud, man. It's loud at our house and fun and loud in a good way. But the adults were trying to talk, and we were talking about the election. And I said, hey, like look at this tweet. And I sent them a tweet. I sent them two. Come to find out, they were parody accounts, not real accounts. And suddenly I felt like my mama. It's like, what is going on? I'm getting old. I got to regroup here, do some fact checking along the way. They call it a phishing campaign, P-H-I-S-I-N-G. It's when a cyber criminal sends a deceptive message to trick someone into divulging sensitive information, such as your bank account or access to your technology. Phishing campaigns are up 60% from 2021 to 2022. And the problem is that they're hard to spot. Do you know why? Because they use the same words that real emails use. As a matter of fact, in the article I read, it said phishing campaigns, here are the top words they use to get you. Look at the words: money, investment, credit, billion, free, loan, debt, cash, cost, income. Now, I'm going to be honest, the only suspicious word is the word billion. Nobody sending me an email should ever use the word billion. You'd probably be okay sticking with hundreds if you wanted to, not billion. But other than that, these are the same words that your bank would use if they were sending you legitimate communication. And the reason a phishing campaign is so easily dupes us is because the same words are used in a real campaign versus a fake campaign, or a real email versus a fake email. So what is the problem? The problem is the bad people and the good people are using the same words, and you cannot tell them apart. The problem is the bad people and the good people are using the same words, and you cannot tell them apart. When the good are so similar to the bad, nothing good will come out of it. Now, some of you who are spiritually mature could preach the rest of this point for me. When the good is indistinguishable from the bad, nothing good ever comes of that. And the same is true for your Christ life. Christ died and rose again so we could, as Paul said, come out from among them and be separate, said the Lord. And our getting ready for the end should not be just like the world's living is. When the good look just like the bad, nothing good comes of that. When the saved act just like the unsaved, nothing good ever comes of that. You got to ask yourself, teenagers, is your lifestyle any different than the lost kids you go to school with? Mom and dad, is your lifestyle any better than the other mom and dads who don't know Jesus? If you're an employee, do you have a work ethic? Can I tell you what employers ought to do? Employers ought to be sending their HR managers out and saying, hey, I may not agree with their religion and stuff, but I need you to go find me all the Christians you can find, because nobody keeps their nose to the grindstone, complains less than these Christians. Go find me some Christians. If you run a business, do you run it differently than a lost and dying world? Do you act differently at the rec department or out in the community? See, people who know God should live differently than those who don't know God. And Paul was trying to tell us that being daily ready meant I kept my living in such a way that every day of my life I was different than those who didn't know Jesus.